Yesterday, we talked about one of the secrets to success, and that secret was focus. Once we have a really good focus on something, then we can really go in that direction because we're concentrating on that. Well, easy to say, but how do you do that? And especially when we're talking about our kids and we're talking about teens who are so susceptible to peer pressure. And remember, peer pressure is a pressure that makes us want to be like everybody else. We don't want to stand out and be embarrassed, and because of that, we have a pressure towards mediocrity instead of excellence. So how do we get that motivation towards focus? And that's what we want to talk about today. Remember yesterday we looked at a passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 9 by the Apostle Paul. In verse 24 he said this, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize?" Well, it's the prize that's the motivation, isn't it? And so whether we're talking about kids and trying to get them to clean their room up, or whether we're talking about teens and trying to help them get good grades, or whether we're talking about that employee that just seems to always be goofing off and never seems to get anything done, we're really talking about motivation. And that motivation typically is in the form of some sort of reward, a prize when we're running. I had a daughter, our youngest daughter, when she was in fourth grade. I noticed while she was running in the school track meet that she was not giving it her all. And yet she was right at the front of the pack. But as she was running in these races, the 50-yard dash, the 100-yard dash, and so on, she'd just be kind of looking around to see how her friends were doing. And so in fifth grade, I bribed her. I told her, for every race you win, I'll give you $5. Well, it worked out really good. The 50-yard dash came, she blew everybody away, got her $5. I was a happy dad. The second race came along, the 100-yard dash, again, blew everybody out of the water. I'm really a proud dad now, but $10 back then for me, and especially since my wife and I are on a preacher's budget, well, that was a little bit of money for us, and it was a lot of money for our daughter. Well, the 200-yard dash came along, and I started to get a little concerned, and sure enough, she ran the 200-yard dash with all of her might, beat the rest by a mile. And so I'm out $15. The motivation worked, but we still have another race, the 400-yard dash. And in this race, I had a glimmer of hope because there was a little girl that was really good in fifth grade at the 400-yard dash. As a matter of fact, she was really good at that for a number of years. She ended up moving away so she could go to a larger school, I think in part so she could participate in track on a bigger scale than we had in our little town. And this girl eventually competed at state and on the state level for years because she was so good. So I had that glimmer of hope that I wasn't going to be out another $5, but sure enough, the 400-yard dash started and those two girls are just neck and neck. Neither one of them wants to lose this race. And so they get to about the halfway point and our daughter's starting to pull away a little bit. And I'm thinking, uh-oh. And then that other girl comes around the last bend and she cuts across on the field to get a little bit of an advantage. But even that wasn't enough because the $5 motivation was just too much for our daughter. And she won that race too, $20. What did we do? Well, we took something that we knew that she was good at, running. If she hadn't been good at running, that type of motivation wouldn't have helped one bit. It might have helped her perform a little bit better, but you can't be the best if you don't have some talent at it. When she played basketball, she really had no talent. Now, her older brother and older sister had all the talent in the world in basketball, but not our youngest. But in track, she really excelled. And it was when she was in fifth grade that she realized that she could excel at a very high level if she would just focus. Well, as the years went by, she got into high school and she won just about every race, and until she got to the state level, and there's some pretty good competition at that. But she did very well, so well, in fact, that she was offered a full ride scholarship in track. And as the years went by, she actually got to compete at the national level. I believe she was a 7-time All-American or a 5-time All-American between indoor track and outdoor track in the time that she ran. And so what was it that allowed her to get the focus? Well, obviously, there was a motivation for her at the outset. It was that $5, and $5 meant something to her at that time. Now, think about your kids, or if you're a boss, think about your employees. What motivates them? Now, I'm not suggesting that you somehow bribe them to do what they're already expected to do. But I am saying if you want to get them to excel at what they're doing, if you want to get them to perform at the highest level, then some incentive is sometimes not a bad idea. Now, we just used that incentive one time for our youngest daughter, but that was enough to get her going. You don't need to have something every single day to get your kids to do what they're supposed to be doing in the first place. But proper motivation in its place can meet with great focus on behalf of the one that you're motivating. And once a child, once a teen, once an adult has enough focus to be able to absolutely concentrate and give their best, and once they have found out that they can not just be successful, but wildly successful in certain areas that they have a good aptitude for, well, that's enough to get them going. When the Apostle Paul writes about the prize that we're looking for, of course, he's talking about heaven. And he's talking about the fact that this life is just a brief test, is it not? Let me read the rest of that verse. After he says, "Do you not know in a race that all runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize." He finishes up this way. "Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever." Christians are focusing upon heaven, an eternal reward. And so he says, "Therefore I do not run like a man running aimlessly, and I do not fight like a man beating the air. No, I beat my body and make it my slave, so that after I've preached to others, I myself may not be disqualified for the prize." The prize is heaven. The prize is eternal life. Think about it if you're getting older. Wouldn't you like a few more years? Isn't the prospect of living forever with good health and interesting things to do compelling to you? This is the prize that God has waiting for all the faithful. He offers it to everybody. Only a few accept it. Remember what Jesus said, "Broad is the path that leads to death, and many enter thereby, but narrow is the gate, and small is the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." He had just said in that same passage that if you seek, you'll find. We have to be motivated in order to have the proper focus. The best motivation I can think of when it comes to judgment is to put yourself in your mind's eye before God at the judgment and think about what it might be like. Now, we all realize that we deserve the punishment, don't we? But by God's grace, we're offered the reward. But the reward is still based on your behavior. We don't access it any way other than grace, don't get me wrong, but we still have our part to do. And that part's going to take tremendous focus if we're going to do it well. But if you're motivated to be with God forever in heaven, and if you're motivated to help your kids get there and your friends get there and everybody that you're concerned about, I believe you're going to get the focus that you need because you're going to have the motivation that you need. How do we get the focus to be able to go on to success? Well, we have to use a proper motivation to do that. So whether we're talking about parents with kids, whether we're talking about a boss with employees, part of our duty is to figure out and then give the proper motivation. And then that will help them to focus upon what they can do. And once they find out, once they taste success, most people are not satisfied with anything but success. You have to have focus, but in order to have the focus, sometimes we need to be motivated. And that is the second secret to success, and especially as we're talking about our kids and our teens. I hope that is something that helps. It certainly has helped me to go back over this. It's helped me to observe smarter people than me to figure out some of these things. But once we do, we can employ them, hopefully in a good way, to where we can encourage one another on, as the scriptures say, to love and good deeds. Thank you for listening today. I hope you'll tune in again tomorrow. But until then, I pray that God will richly bless you as you seek to serve Him to the best of your ability.